You're listening to The Ray Lytle Show on News Radio 1240 and 107.5 FM, WTAX.
Discussing District 186, the school board, and the school district on The Ray Lytle Show this hour. Right before going to news, Kirk Fair was in Reporter's Notebook talking about news that an employee in the district has been put on suspension without pay after an audit showed that there was money missing from a school activity fund. You now say that you have sources that have confirmed for you the school? Are we ready to say
during that break? We confirmed a couple of things.
All right.
All right. At this point, we know it is apparently Southeast High School.
Mm-hmm.
The activity fund that funds the cheerleaders and the booster club and those type of things is missing $13,000.
Oh, man.
And an employee as yet unnamed has been placed on leave without pay pending an Illinois State Police investigation. Now, you have a school board member coming in the next
I do.
30 minutes.
Scott McFarland's going to be here any second. We'll talk to Scott. Yeah, he'll be.
This has all transpired within the last 45 minutes, I would suspect.
Shall we get the truth? Give me the lie detector. I'll ask Scott if he, in fact, took the money, which I doubt. That was a horrible thing to say because he just walked in. Oh, wonderful. There he is.
Get out of your way because I give the facts. He opines, and I have nothing to do with
Thank you, Kirk.
You betcha.
Scott, let me first apologize by implying that you had anything to do with money missing. I'm simply, it was bad timing. Scott McFarland of District 186 on the school board, just walking into the show around the. Scott, first off, thank you for being on.
No problem.
It just came up in the last 10 minutes. Kirk is working on a story that a district employee has been put on suspension after they found out that there is money missing from what appears to be a Southeast High School activity fund, and that the Illinois State Police have now been called in to do this investigation. It came after an audit, standard audit that they do, and they just released it to the media today. Is this the first you're hearing of it?
It is. So I have really no information, probably, except for what you have.
So they don't call school board members and say, hey, we're about to release that somebody ripped off money from an account?
It depends on the situation. Also, honestly, I've been busy all day, so I haven't checked my email. So they may have, and I just haven't checked my email. So
this is the first you hear it is from me?
Yeah, as I walk in the door.
Well, congratulations on receiving this breaking news.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
A big meeting last night
yes.
For you guys in the school board. Interesting. On so many levels, or it made the news on so many different levels. For starters, the public is concerned whenever people start talking tax increases, and that was discussed on two levels. Number one, Catherine Eastvold's group, the Invest in 186, started floating around a property tax increase. And then last night, Vice President Lopez brought up a sales tax increase. Is it a waste of time for us to be talking about tax increases when voters they won't give them to you guys? When's the last time we've even gotten one?
1983 was the last time we had a referendum passed in Springfield.
Do you see it magically happening now, again, after all these years?
It would take a lot of work in terms of the community, and that's one of those where the community is going to decide what they want to do. And it's a pat answer, but that's the answer that's the truthful. The community is going to have to say, look, we have cut, in the 3 years I've been here, over $10 million we have cut. We have laid off teacher after teacher after teacher. And we're going to have to cut another $4 to $6 million this next year, and probably another year of cutting after that, just to balance out everything that's going on. A lot of that is based on the state. We are pretty darn close to a balanced budget if the state would pay its fair share. It hasn't done that for quite a few years. So,
are we now to the point where we just go ahead and say, well, the state's not going to give it? Do we start
I think that's
running
where we're at.
things from the aspect of the state's just not going to give us any money?
I think that's where we're at, and that's one of the reasons why members of the community have got together and said, okay, well, the state's not going to pay their fair share. Let's see if we want to go ahead and put a little bit more in to make up the difference. Because you've got two options. Either you put more money into the system, or you have to take resources out of the system to balance that budget. We cannot spend deficit budgets.
What's left to cut? I mean, you as a school board member, you've been involved in cutting since you joined the school board. You've
every
cut,
year.
cut.
Every year.
What is left to cut for District 186?
You're down to personnel. There are no programs that we're spending money on that we don't need to spend money on. We've trimmed the administration to the point where we have people doing 3-4 different jobs. So you're down to personnel. And when I say personnel, 80-some-odd% of your budget is teachers. And I don't want to cut any more teachers. I'm going to have to this year, unfortunately. But if the community got together and said, we're done with this. We're done with class sizes in the upper 30s. We're done with reducing high school classes. And we're done with removing programs and schools that are doing a good job. Well, the answer is we have to have more support from the community.
But when you know the community has a history of not giving you a tax increase,
I'm ever the optimist.
What do you do? So you are confident that they're going to okay it.
I said I'm an optimist.
I want to bring up a guest we have on the phone with us, Bob Lemming.
There you go.
Our school superintendent. I guess he's technically the interim school superintendent, but he is the guy.
He's the superintendent in my heart.
He is the superintendent we all know and love. Let's welcome Bob Lemming to the Ray Lytle Show. Hello, Superintendent Lemming.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Bob, Scott McFarland is with me from, of course, the school board. You know Scott. A couple of things. Let me start. Can I start this because this is breaking news, and I want to start with it before we get into the tax increases and cutting and the like. News coming out that Southeast High School, they have money missing from an activity fund, and the Illinois State Police are now involved in an investigation, and there's an employee who has been sent home without pay while this thing is investigated. Was that your decision? Does that cross your desk?
Sure does.
And when did you guys discover this?
Well, we've been investigating it for some time, and the final determination was made today. Our business services office has been conducting its annual audit, and discovered or learned that or believed that there was some irregularities in the accounts and the bank deposits weren't matching up, and so on and so forth. So they went deeper, and then we asked the Illinois State Police to look at it.
How do you get to the point of sending an employee home? Is it after the Illinois State Police got involved, or just from the annual audit?
To the employee, and they admitted.
Oh, so the employee you presented, was that you that presented the evidence and then they admitted it?
State Police.
Oh, State Police. And this is I've got $13,000 from Southeast High School. Is that accurate?
We think it's a lot more than that, but we're not sure yet and not ready to talk about that yet.
Okay. So you're saying that it was your decision to bring in the State Police? Well,
it was ultimately as a superintendent, yes, but collectively several of us talked about the strategy, and our legal counsel, we went to our legal counsel for next steps, and that's what was presented, and that's what we decided to do.
Talking to District 186 Superintendent Bob Lemming, news has come out that Southeast High School is missing a considerable amount of money from an activity fund. After an annual audit, they brought in the Illinois State Police. You said the police figured out who to question pretty quickly, and then that employee admitted it.
Well, we had a pretty good idea at that point, and we had several discussions with the Illinois State Police before that person was interviewed. So, the bookkeeper basically, it isn't hard to figure out. So,
what's the next step for you? Does this person go into the effort? Is it a human resources question of how do we terminate this person, or is it a question of the Illinois State Police take over and John Milheiser eventually is involved? And
it's both. And the second part of your comment is Milheiser's decision as to whether there's enough evidence to prosecute, and then that's his decision. But our decisions run parallel to that, and we've made an HR decision already to suspend without pay because we believe there's enough evidence to warrant that decision and to recommend. We'll talk to the board later about final action for the termination or allows the return to work, which I can't imagine, but
the employee's admission pretty much guarantees there's going to be a termination, I'd imagine.
I would think so.
Another thing, we have Scott McFarland here, and we're discussing a little bit about a tax. They floated a tax increase idea, and I asked Scott, I said, you guys have cut and cut and cut and cut. He says he's confident.
I said optimistic.
He said he's optimistic that the people of Springfield and the county would at least listen. They would at least listen for reasons why we need a tax increase. They have always shown that they won't give one. As superintendent, can I ask how hard it is to run things with a budget that's so underneath itself? How do we run things when it constantly seems to be in a state of cutting?
Well, we're still doing it, and we're being very careful, and we're trying to be spend the money in the right places and no waste. And we're getting. I heard Scott say, and by the way, he's a good man, and I appreciate his comments because he's right on the money. That there's not much left on the bones, and so we can do a little more cutting, and we're planning for next year. We haven't started the actual process, but it's coming soon. And then after that, I don't know what's left to cut. So we need to figure out some more revenue to be able to run this district and offer the types of an educational program that I think our families and our kids deserve.
Talking to School Superintendent Bob Lemming and School Board Member Scott McFarland. Bob, you're supposed to be retired right now. You're supposed to be fishing and golfing.
We won't let him.
And instead, you have come back to sort of save this. You've come back with the hope that you can save this district and get things running properly while they look for what is essentially going to be your replacement. Do you have a voice in that? I know we've heard that we have the city group or parents groups looking at it. We have school board looking at it. Are you going to have a say? Do you get a chance to talk about who your replacement will be?
No, I don't. That's a board decision. If they ask me my opinion on stuff like that, I'm usually willing to give it. But really, the board is very well prepared, and Scott actually is the liaison with the School Exec Connect, and they're going about it in a real nice way to bring a new superintendent to the district in a timely fashion, and they're going to be fine. It'll all work out just fine, I think.
I'm going to talk about this subject with Scott next, but I want to ask you about it before I let you go. Judith Johnson said some comments last night that offended some teachers of Lanphier. Has that come to your desk today?
No. My comment on that is that Ms. Johnson pointed out a concern that I believe that the black community, the African American community, is very vigilant and very concerned about, and she asked questions about how we're responding to that, and she's got a right to do that, and she did, and I think it's a touchy subject sometimes, but the achievement gap is a real thing and a real concern. And the Lanphier teachers and the Lanphier administration and the SIG grant people are doing a great job. They really are. It just got to be a little tense there without, it didn't need to be.
What was it? You are. I mean, this is what you and Artie Doss would be. You're these teachers. You're their boss. Mm-hmm. Was it offensive to you guys by her saying that? I'll play the audio and let people judge for themselves. But saying that they don't work hard enough, or is there concern? Do you have concern that these teachers don't work hard enough?
No, I think they work hard. I think that there might be that perception out there, but I'm going to tell you what, these teachers do work hard, and they do address this, and they do talk about this, and they care about this. And I think Ms. Johnson was trying to get them to talk about that, and it'll be okay. These people are doing a good job, and I know their feelings were hurt. I don't think Ms. Johnson intended that, but I can't speak for her. But I think she asked a tough question, and I think people interpreted that they weren't working hard, and they are. And I know Mr. Doss was here; he would say that they are. So don't people people shouldn't be concerned about that. What we have to do is keep working hard, and we've got to keep trying to figure out how we can close the achievement gap so that those lines on these graphs don't go down, that they go up.
It sure seems like a bigger picture than just teachers aren't working hard.
Yeah, it is. It is a bigger picture. And there's a lot of factors. And those teachers do work hard. I'll guarantee you that.
And I second that, too. I've been over at Lanphier so many times, and those folks are working on nonstop 60, 70-hour work weeks. So there's more we can be doing, but we shouldn't put it on the teacher's shoulders.
We're going to talk about it more with Scott McFarland coming up. Superintendent Lemming, I thank you. I know you're supposed to be going home from work here. I thank you for jumping on. And listen, we don't talk much, but by the way, hats off to you. And I don't know if people say this. Literally, you're retired. You're supposed to be golfing, and you're back to work to save this thing. And just want to say hats off to you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And I actually, it's an honor to serve the district, and I just do what I can. There's a lot of good people around here, and there's a good board of education, and hopefully we'll make some progress.
The Ray Lytle Show will continue. Thank you, Bob. The Ray Lytle Show will continue in a moment. We'll be back more with school board member Scott McFarland. Don't go anywhere. The Ray Lytle Show continues. Scott McFarland, school board member, my guest. You can stay for a while, can't you? Because I don't know any way we're going to...
I got class at 6.
Okay, well, good. Well, I'm going to stay with you for a while then. By the way, you did get you did get...
I did. I do want to point out that I just have had a busy day, so I didn't get the email on my phone, but they did notify us, so it's not like the superintendent didn't notify the board beforehand.
About the employee in
Yes.
Southeast, and did they tell you who the employee was?
I have the same information that you do right now, sir.
The Ray Lytle Show continuing. Scott McFarland. I want to talk about Judy Johnson and her comments last night. In fact, I'm going to have you relive those comments at the school board meeting last night. Can you do the setup for me? Lanphier teachers were there, and what got this started where school board member Judy Johnson ended up offending them to the point of them walking out?
Well, Lanphier has been on year 3 of the SIG grant, School Improvement Grant, which is where they receive additional funds from the state and from the feds in order to improve their school. And they've been doing a very good job at using innovative ideas and working to improve the culture over there as well as the education over there. When they showed us some of the scores, there is a massive gap between white students and black students. That's the same kind of gap we see across the district. And it's what Bob Lemming just mentioned. The achievement gap is something that we definitely need to work on, and everyone knows that. What happened was, and I'm not going to speak for Ms. Johnson, but there was a back and forth about what those scores meant. I argued that because they're ISAT scores and we test different groups every single year because it's always 11th grade, so you don't have the same kids. So you really can't say that the scores are dropping or raising. It means that cohort of children scored that.
And didn't the ISAT standards change in the last?
They're going to be changing now.
Okay.
This is what that Common Core is everyone else is discussing. Common Core is going to check our students every single year. And we're also going to have a PARC test that will check our kids in elementary and middle school. So we're going to have, instead of saying all 11th graders get tested and here's their scores, we're going to say the kids in kindergarten advance to first grade, here's their changes in their scores.
Okay.
So we'll be able to track a student instead of a group.
Judy Johnson ended up saying that it was the teachers not working hard enough. And that's what it is. And we're going to play this after the news. We're coming up on news. But after the news, I want to play her actual comments.
I'd rather you do that than me try to paraphrase her.
You can actually hear the teachers walking out.
And I walked out after them.
Oh, so you actually got up and walked out?
Yeah, and not that I walked out. I followed them out to make sure that they were okay as they were leaving the meeting. So I went out and talked to them for a little bit after they walked out.
I want to discuss all of this when we come back after news. Stay tuned. CBS News and with your national news, and Alex with local news on the Ray Lytle Show.
Now, a man who quit the Tea Party after he found out they didn't have cake. Ray Lytle.
I am joined by school board member Scott McFarland. And we are discussing last night's very eventful school board meeting. It was, wouldn't you say it was an eventful one?
Yeah, it went quite a long time. We got out of there about 9 o'clock, so.
Did you know Adam Lopez was going to bring up the sales tax
Yeah, he had talked to me about it prior to that.
So you guys knew it was coming?
I knew he was looking at it. I didn't know if it was going to come up that night or not, but I know he was looking at it.
Something that's needed in this school district, but something that history has shown people will not give you guys.
Well, and we're talking about two different things here, too. There's a group in the community of parents
who invest in 186.
Yeah, who want to look at a property tax.
Captain Eastfold's group, right?
She's one of them, and then there's Jessica, and then Shelley. There's some CCPA parents, some other folks that are around there. I think there's actually, last time I saw a list, there's like 20 parents that are involved in that. So it's a rather large group.
And they're trying to get a property tax referendum.
Yeah.
Adam Lopez brought up a
1% sales tax.
1% sales tax.
The difference being the property tax referendum would be for just 186, so Springfield and the smaller villages inside of Springfield and a little bit of the area around, whereas in the 1% would be countywide. The 1% can only go to facilities, so you'd have to upgrade school buildings or build new ones off of that. Whereas in the referendum goes into our education fund, which is where we've been cutting.
With the sales tax, wouldn't you guys want to contact Ball Chatham school board, see if they'd get behind it, or some of the other school boards?
And what Mr. Lopez has said is that he's started to make those initial contacts, him personally. I don't believe the board has made those contacts. And, it's last time when this happened in 2010, most of the county voted for it. It was Springfield that didn't make up the difference, and that's why it failed.
So you would like to see it get passed. You'd love to see or find a way to at least get it up for a vote.
I think that we first need to decide what's our priority area right now. Now, in my area of town, the north end, we need facilities desperately. Lanphier is not ADA compliant. It still doesn't have HVAC, so you're either cooking or you're freezing, one or the other. But what's more important right now? New facilities or keeping teachers on the job?
You said earlier that, and I told you when I brought up the fact that we are so far behind in what we're underneath. What was the amount of money?
We need to cut about another $6 million.
$6 million.
$4 to $6 million this year. We haven't got the actual estimate.
And you say the next thing to cut is personnel.
We have been cutting personnel too, don't we? We haven't not been doing that. We've riffed tons of teachers over the rift reduction in force laid off. We've riffed tons of teachers over the past few years. There hasn't been 1 year I've been on the board, and I've been here for 3 years now, where we haven't riffed teachers. And we're going to have to do it again.
Talking to Scott McFarland, school board member. Let me get into and I wanted to wait to hold this because I know this is what the rest of the conversation is going to be about. Judah Johnson last night, I said I was going to play the audio. You set it up before we went to news, and we were talking about the scores for 11th graders at Lanphier. They received the grant. What was the grant again that you guys?
School Improvement Grant, SIG.
It's a federal grant?
It's a state and federal grant.
State and federal grant. And the terms of that grant, they had to do what?
They have to, first off, the teachers all had to support the idea of it coming in. This was about 3 years ago now. They had to change the curriculum. They actually increased the school day, so Lanphier school day is larger than all the other school days. We changed the way teachers have their planning time and their teaching time. So really, they reinvented everything at Lanphier.
In order to get the money, they had to do these things.
Yes, they had to have that plan in place before they got the money.
And now the test scores have come in, and?
We're seeing positive growth, but there is still a gap between our minority students and our white students, which is across the board. It's not just
for white students, they're at what?
The numbers off the top of my head for this year was about 49% making annual progress. Now remember, this is annual progress based on No Child Left Behind.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean only 49% of our kids are doing well. It means based on a federal law that shouldn't be there, right. 49% of our kids are doing what the federal law says they should be doing.
And minority students are
18.9.
Oh, so yes. There's that. So you're talking 30%.
Yes. Now keep in mind.
And that's under No School or No Child Left Behind.
Exactly. So keep in mind that does not mean that only 18% of our black kids are doing well. It means based on No Child Left Behind, those are the ones who are scoring at meets or exceeds.
Only 18%.
Now, that's ISAT scores, which only checks every 11th grade. So it's not the same students every year. So you have different cohorts coming in every year. And it doesn't mean that Lanphier is where they're making the gap. what's happening is throughout these children's lives, they're falling behind. So we need to start from kindergarten and work with them throughout the years to where they continue to be
and then gauge that. But
yes.
that's not what Judy Johnson said. Judy Johnson last night put the blame on the Lamphere teachers. Lamphere teachers, there was a Lamphere teacher that was speaking with her, and she first started out saying that she didn't want to offend them and then proceeded to go ahead and defend them. This is the audio from last night with Judy Johnson. It's about 2 minutes long, so give it a listen, everybody.
Let me just say this to you. I realize that you work hard, but we all have to work harder at everything we do. And I'm not saying, I know you've been through whatever, and this is a 3-year thing. But when you look at the numbers, kids have to be educated because they are our future. And the numbers should not be going down. They should at least be remaining. As you have these programs that have time attached to them, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, you should at least be able to maintain some kind of standard of improvement or across the board. And I realize that when you look at a class that's coming in 2013, it's going to be different from the class in 2014. But everybody ought to be smart enough to know that we have to track those kids that are coming in, and don't say we don't track, because we do, that came in 2010 to make sure that they are improving. When they graduate from Lamphere High School, we all want them to be able to go out and go to college or to get a job or to do something that is rewarding to them and is beneficial to our communities. And that is the objective. And I know that you're in your buildings every day working hard. But we've got to figure out where these lapses come in. We've got to figure it out. And I don't think it'd be that hard. But like I say, expectation.
I would invite you to come to every collaboration then, because if you can figure that out, we would love for you to be there.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Because I don't know that you intended to offend us, but you definitely did.
Well, I always manage to do that. So I think that.
All right.
But sometimes, it hurts. The truth hurts. Okay.
Well, that's very
and that's where we have to work from. So if you are offended, that might mean that maybe you need to work a little harder.
Oh, okay.
And that's when they walk out. That's what did it. So basically, if you're offended, it's because you don't work hard enough. And can you explain that scene at what happened at that moment?
Yeah, you got the gist of it with the sound. The teachers who were there, and it was teachers and administrators from Lamphere. There was several. They were crowded behind our desks. Probably about 10 of them. They left, and they stepped outside. And actually, I got up and left the meeting for a moment and stepped outside and chatted with them for a bit. They were upset, but they are professionals. And I'm sure they went right back to work today teaching those kids.
They left because they just couldn't deal with her anymore? Was that their reasoning?
Yeah, that report went on for about 20-25 minutes. So you got 2 minutes.
And they were bashed throughout it.
Yeah, and it's not all bashing. Let me be clear that gap is unacceptable. But the gap is not there because these teachers are not doing their job. The gap is there because the district isn't putting the resources we need to into our entire system, going back to finances. When we're cutting teachers, we're not putting the resources into a school system that it needs. And then along with that, it's a continual process.
Let me ask you this, and I want to word this properly, so I don't want anyone to think. And anyone who knows me personally, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying anything the least bit racist here. But let me say this. Were you shocked that Judith Johnson, who is a member of the black community, would completely absolve what's going on in the black community in regards to prioritizing education by blaming the teachers not working hard enough for those scores?
I don't know if she's completely absolved the community or not, because that
Boy, it
wasn't
sure
part of the
sounded
discussion.
like it in those comments.
And I'm actually friends with Miss Johnson. We've chatted quite a bit in the 3 years I've been on the board with her, and prior to that. And I know she actually understands what's going on. She really, truly cares about those kids and all kids. What tends to happen, unfortunately, is things get heated. And one thing I mentioned after I came back, after speaking with the teachers, was I asked for continual decorum and a more professional manner going forward. So hopefully the board will do that.
Well, is she upset at you for did you speak to her? You said you talked to the teachers. Did you speak to her?
I didn't speak to her that night, but I did run into her this morning at actually Doris Turner's breakfast, and we chatted for a bit, and it was cordial. So I think we're okay.
It was a crazy scene last night, and a lot of feelings were hurt.
Yes, they were.
And this is something.
Mine was one of them.
I intentionally have waited to bring this up on the show because I know this is going to lead to a lot of people having opinions on it. This is something that the community, I believe, are going to want to talk about. Is it the fault of the teacher that these kids, the minority students, are so far below standard as compared to the white students?
Yeah.
Because that is what she, in essence, was saying, and that's what offended the teacher. It definitely
did.
Yeah. Is the school board the place where you discuss, hey, is there something we can do to get the community to prioritize education? And I'm not saying it's the entire black community. Well, there's obviously people in the white community who do the same thing, but society as a whole has. Just look at Facebook, for goodness sakes. Read Facebook, and you'll see the lack of education, just how we take pride in our stupidity in this nation. What can the school board do to get people to prioritize actually reading or taking pride in getting a good grade? Because I think that although those teachers cared, you cared, Judith Johnson cares. I'm telling you right now, those people not in the 18%, whose children, 18% of the minority students, made the standard. The other 22%, or the other 72%, or 82%, excuse me. Now I need to go to school. The other 82% that didn't, yes, that those parents. There are many of them that just don't care. They don't prioritize it. They don't.
And I would be very careful about using percentages there because, again,
I
this
understand
is based on
that,
AYP,
yes.
which is annual progress based on No Child Left Behind, which is an insane law that should never have been passed and sets standards that no one can meet. And so it's much smaller percentage of that than what you're saying in terms of.
But any percentage still.
No, you're right.
Is that the school board's place to try to instill something in the community that says, hey,
and one of the things
stop yelling at your kid. You start taking a look at your children and their grades and patting them on the back when they do well and letting them know you're disappointed when they don't.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to realize is the school district isn't just the buildings that are open from 8 to 3 or whatever time they're open to. We need to be a part of the community. We need to be a resource to it. I would love to see neighborhood schools where families that may not have internet connection, may not have the ability to, do whatever have you, we have schools available for that. In the summer, we offer meals to anyone who comes in. It's just an example of us being more involved in the community. So can we police what parents do? Absolutely not. It's not our place to do that. But can we offer resources to assist those parents who, I would argue, a vast majority truly care about what their students are doing, and they just need more support to get the job done?